in St. Joe, Missouri, and at a dental meeting, and this is such a treat because all but one of it, you graduated from UMKC, but George Ruwwe, Howard Farran, Lisa Gonzales, Stephanie Carmada, Van Dyne. Carmada was your name in dental school? Now you're Van Dyne. Tom Moore. We all graduated from UMKC Dental School in class of 87, and you graduated from UMKC 1970, and we were all in 87. So I just thought this would be so cool because everybody listening is probably a dentist under 30, and all of us are dentists over 50, and so we've all done probably for 3 decades what they're all about to do. So I thought it would be great to just go around and say, and after 30 years, if your daughter just graduated from dental school Monday, you know, what advice would you give her? And we'll start with George Ruwwe.
Well, I would definitely expand my horizons and make sure that I understood how to do ortho, endo, implants, dentures, children's geriatrics. You don't want to get into the exam, bite-wing, prophy, fillings, and crowns. You need to have a broad horizon of services that you offer. So when the economy goes down, then you have a larger base of things to do. So that's what I would recommend.
So do you do new patient cleaning exams and x-rays? I mean, how do you do, that's a question they always ask. Someone calls up and they want to make an appointment. They just want to get their teeth cleaned. Do you do that, or do you have to do a new patient exam first?
Yeah, I pretty much do whatever they want to do. It's like, well, what would you like to do? What do you want to accomplish today? Why are you here? You know, well, really, I got a toothache, you know, and I'd like to kind of focus on that. And then maybe I'd like to get my teeth cleaned, or I'd really like to get both of them done today. Okay, we can do that. We can get a new exam, bite, wing, x-rays, prophy, and then I'll take care of your tooth. You know, we'll be glad to do as much as we can. People don't like to get rescheduled. Their time's important and it's limited. So I always try to do the service that day. And by golly, you can do it. You may look at your schedule and think it's jam-packed. But if it's a root canal build-up crown, you know, for $1,500, by golly, you better make time to do it.
Okay, but I already know what they're going to say because they email me about 300 times a day at howard@dentaltown.com. I just walked out of dental school, $350,000 in debt. We only did 5 canals of endo. How the hell am I supposed to learn molar endo when I've only done 5 canals and they were all on incisors?
Oh, definitely need some continued education. You know, I saw Dr. Steve Buchanan. I think he's a great mentor. And you learn the flow of the procedure, and then after you do a few more, you just get better and better at it. But these guys are experts in their field. They're excellent mentors, and they're always willing to help you if you get stuck. And you can learn it, and you can do it, absolutely.
And Bob, you bought a CBCT, and you're placing implants. I know what she's saying. She's saying, I just graduated from UMKC. I didn't place 1 implant. How does she go from I've never placed an implant to placing 1 implant? And Stephanie, you're a big implant provider. Do you place implants?
I restore a lot. I'm just starting to place.
And Tom does a lot of implants, but he's an orthodontist. We still don't understand what's going on there. I think that bracket came off. So how does she go from I've never placed an implant to placing an implant?
Well, having a CBCT is still not the standard of care. I mean, you can place implants. You just pick easy ones. You know, pick the nice big ridge like number 19 or number 5 or number 12. Pick a simple place. If it looks difficult, don't do it. I did implants for years with just using a pano or a little PA or something of that nature. But you have to be site specific and know your anatomy and pick find out where, you know, you have plenty of bone to do it in. And if it just looks a little iffy, you know, refer it out. But there's plenty of situations that you can handle and start off easy, and then as you get more procedures under your belt, you'll become more comfortable, possibly get more continuing education, learn how to do a bone graft. You don't need to have any new materials. You don't need a CBCT for that. You know, doing bone grafts, picking out nice big places, and you just, your skill level will develop over time. But just don't get in a hurry. Do the easy ones first and build your skill level. And it takes about 10 years to get decent, okay?
Take the courses that you can practice with pig jaws and things like that, and you can go to Las Vegas. The Las Vegas Institute has a beautiful implant placing area. And then I also suggest taking baby steps, like George said, but also being really careful to flap everything. I wouldn't do anything closed in the beginning, so you can visualize all the anatomy right away, right in the beginning. And if you like surgery is not that complex because you can visualize everything. And endo's tough. You can't always see exactly what you're doing. But surgery, and I do think it's definitely the realm of the general dentist. And I'm really adamant about that because, we understand occlusion, we understand positioning of the implant. When you look at where it's going to emerge, buccal or lingual, it's really important to pay attention. And when you're placing the implant, you have control over that. Lots of oral surgeons prefer to have stents and things, and I've got a brother that's an oral surgeon, and he's flapping everything. He's doing the clear choice all on 4. When you're visualizing the anatomy, it makes a big difference, even with or without a CBCT.
I couldn't agree more with that. I was kind of trained doing it through the gingiva without doing a flap, and then I just started doing flaps, and my comfort level went up 100% doing flap surgery with implants, and absolutely, I think that's absolutely necessary because you don't know what's under that tissue. You do not know the thickness of the tissue, and you got to lay a flap, and you'll feel so much more comfortable. I agree with Stephanie wholeheartedly.
And you can visualize the implant being buried in the bone. You can also visualize labial plates and things like that are really hard to see without flapping. And, I think it's really not that complex. Using a perioprobe, measuring distance, getting comfortable with different implant styles and designs. And the companies are there to help you, too. You can always work with a surgical tech. They're great. They'll come in your office. They'll work with you. They'll help you measure. They'll help you provide service.
To both of you, surgical guide or not to surgical guide?
I'm not a fan of the surgical guide. It takes a lot of extra space. It's a lot of extra cost. And most of the time, you can do this without a surgical guide. And if the case is that complex that you need a surgical guide and you're just beginning on it, I wouldn't do it anyway. And it's a huge extra expense for the armamentarium that's required to use a surgical guide. You got to have a different drill kit, and it adds to the complexity, it adds to the cost, and it adds to the time, and all I see is downside to surge guides. I think it's for people that just lack confidence, and I think it can be done free-handed pretty easily. And don't forget to learn ortho. Ortho is bread and butter. I love it.
It depends on the case. If I'm doing an anterior case, I must always use a surgical guide because I want to see the emergence profile. So posterior teeth, not quite as important. Visualizing bones easier. Anterior, I'm using a surgical guide.
So you and I are the only 2 victims in our class that had 4 children. Would you recommend getting tubal ligation and vasectomy before dental school, or will you wait until after?
I say no comment. To each their own. So I just wanted to add that with all the dental entities that we're trained to do in dental school, the key is to continue your continuing ed, keep learning. It never ends. There's something thrown at us all the time. And then it's okay to know your limitations and your likes and dislikes. If you get in there and it is not for you, maybe it's for your associate. There's a time when you just say, I don't want to do it, or I don't care to. If you don't like it, you're not going to make the money and enjoy it, and you're going to have added stress. Stress kills people. I say dentistry it can be a good place and a happy place, but it's got enough stress on its own. There's no reason to add more. So just know your limitations. It's okay to say somebody else is better than you. You'll win in the end. It's a win-win situation.
I'm going to ask you, I hope you don't think this is a sexist question, but it kind of is a sex question. A lot of girls say that, that in dentistry in 1970, it was considered an all-male profession, or a mostly male profession. Do you agree? And that the men could go be dentists because the wife was taking care of all the kids and all this stuff. Now a lot of women are sitting there, half the class is women, and a lot of them say, I really want to own my own office, but I don't really know if my lazy-ass husband's going to help me be a parent. And I wonder if I have to be Wonder Woman supermom to be a dentist, own my own business, and get married, and have children? Should I just go get a job at Heartland and just give up all that stuff? Because granted, what % of men are lazy pigs? That's my question.
What percent? I do not know what percent.
But you know where I'm getting at with this?
I do think that there's probably a lot of them that are out there worried. It would depend on your spouse.
She's got a good one, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It would be though, because they've got to be willing to help. Can't be afraid to change the diapers. I mean, we're all in the dental profession. It never fails. There's that 4:30 emergency. We don't get out. The crown doesn't go. The root canal, we can't find the last canal. There's something always happens. So you've got to have some flexibility with your family. Now, I always made it my point to make sure my patients as well as my family understood they're equal. They're both one large family. They were not, I didn't cross over. I mean, my kids did work in the practice, so they got to know them. I always had pictures up. They poo-poo me because I don't get them up quick enough anymore. But it can be done. I personally don't think Heartland is for everybody. I had bought my practice less than 9 months out of dental school. I hit the road running. I was married. I bought it in February, married in September, had my first child a year and a half later, and I had 3 more within 2 years of each other. It can be done. And I will tell you that when I go to their schools, I made every party, you schedule it off. You schedule to include your family. It can all be done. Most of the time when I went to parties, they had no idea I was a full-time dentist and a business owner. I would, head back to the office if I had to, or I'd call it a short day and just work harder the next day. But I think it can be done. Now, as far as how many males are lazy pigs, I'm going to avoid that discussion because I don't know the percentage and I don't care to venture it.
And then I want to ask you another racist, sexist question. They were saying all the way back to when we were in school that when they were trying to figure out economic output, that the women all were going to have shorter careers, work less, do all this stuff. I never saw that in the 3 decades out, but you still see the same projections. Oh, them women, they're just going to quit, throw in the towel, have a bunch of babies, retire early. Do you think those the girls in our class, did they retire and work less hours than the average man?
A few did. Yeah, I was going to say a few, but overall, I don't think so. Yeah, I would say they were
the hardest working women dentists I know.
Thanks. And maybe maybe there was 5 or 6 of us that were exceptions to the bunch as far as doing it. But I think it's the type of personality you have to be able to balance, and you have to know that it's hard work, both sides, whether it's raising the family or whether it's owning your own practice, dealing with patients all day. I mean, it is hard work, but I don't think in our class we had, and there's a few that did retire a little bit earlier, but they all worked. None of them I don't think anybody just went out, stopped within 2 years of marriage. Right. I personally put in a lot of work at dental school and with my education to just throw it in, and I don't know, my kids and everybody, they just know it's.
Okay, so I'm trying to get the reason I'm getting on YouTube is because my number one complaint on Dentistry Uncensored is that it's always a bunch of white, fat, bald men that I'm interviewing, and half the class women. One of the most common questions they always ask, especially women dental students, is how many years after graduation does it take before I can open my own? I mean, do you think she should do 2 years, 3 years first? Because you and I walked out of school, you were open in 9 months. I was open September 21, I had my own. And they're always asking, how long should I work at Heartland before I open up my own? And you got to answer the last question.
I think it kind of depends on the individual, their speed coming out. How hard did they work in dental school? Because, it's not a bragging thing here, but I had my requirements done my 3rd year. All my 4th year was doing the extra, doing everything I could, developing my speed, just picking the teacher's brain. So I think that's key. So if you're that personality, you're probably ready immediately, like Howard. He did all his research. I can remember him putting pegs where he's going to go, where the dentists were, which corner wasn't, and explaining it all to me as to why he wasn't going there and wouldn't go. But if you're not prepared in that situation, if you haven't thought those out, if you haven't taken the time to do it, then I'd say probably work for a Heartland or for someone. Maybe 2 years. You're going to have your speed definitely by then. You're going to see how the businesses are run. You're going to have dealt with plenty of patients. I don't think you need to go anymore unless you're overspending your income, stuff like that, because you have to have some cash flow to be able to start the practice or buy one, either way. I think at 2 years you're plenty good enough, to be honest. I felt very ready. Graduated in May, and I guess it was 9 months. I can't count anymore, but it was in February. I had my own practice, and I hit the road running and never looked back, and never regretted it. So I don't know that there's a magic time, but I would say anywhere from immediately to within 2 years.
Lisa is a machine. We're just going to start with that. She's amazing. You have 5 kids, don't you?
My husband.
Oh, okay. I mean, we really have to kind of take her out of the equation. I started with a fair amount of debt coming out of dental school, and I wanted to be able to pay my debt down. And I know a lot of the younger dentists have an extreme amount of debt. So I'm assuming that's one of the reasons that you're going to work for a corporate dental. And that makes sense because you have to have income to pay the debt. You also want to be able to support your family. So what I would suggest is once you get your debt paid down to a significant level, then go out on your own. And I would always suggest, at least in my case, it worked beautifully, buying an existing practice because you can literally hit the ground running. You also have an in-place mentor to help you. And those sorts of things worked really well for me. I also want to make sure everybody understands that this is a team sport. So you don't have to shoulder all the responsibility yourself. Remember, you've got a group. And one of the best pieces of advice I would like to deliver is just that your team is really the most important part of the equipment in your office. And you've got to take care of your people. I've had some folks working for me for literally 30 years. I built in a pension and profit sharing plan, so I made them part owner of my company. And some of them are retiring early with me because they've saved so much money. And it's an understanding, and your team will develop respect for you if you have respect for them. And I think that is kind of a difference in female dental offices, to be honest. You know, we have lots of people who've been with us for years. The patients get used to those staff members, and it does become kind of a family, but it's a team. And we all work together. You know, it's not something where, you know, I dictate all the rules. And I've gotten some fantastic people over the years, the hygienists that I've had for many, many years. You know, and they make me tons of money, but they're part of a group, they're part of a team. You're not alone.
I hear these two complaints. I bought Old Man McGregor's practice. Old Man McGregor, he led these women, he bossed around, all like that. It was all good. I bought his practice. I say the same damn thing, and them girls look at me like a deer in a headlight. They don't respond to me like they do a man. Is that in their head, or is that real?
You know, I didn't have that with mine. I bought a existing practice. It was a smaller one to start out. I mean, there was just
Where was it?
in Kansas City, Kansas.
Okay.
3-4 employees, hygienist, front desk, assistant, part-time hygienist. So, but I never had that. Now, the only thing I did have is that office had never had change. They'd had the same doctor forever. When I came in, that was a little bit of a change. I did find, you know, I went back to my old white jacket so I would stand out a little bit different from the other females in there. But I honestly never had any resistance to them. Maybe I'm more forceful. Maybe I don't know. But I did. I got lucky, maybe.
Dwell on what you said again. You think women have less turnover? Is that what I picked up? That women dentists have less turnover in their business?
I think so. I think they develop kind of a family atmosphere typically because they tend to be caretaking. I did face this particular issue you're talking about where, you know, staff wouldn't necessarily jump in and, you know, take what I said right away. And what I realized is that I think there needs to be, again, a mutual respect. Sometimes it might just happen naturally from an older male to a younger female. So when you're on peer with these people, you know, again, the teamwork aspect of things, you know, I'm not up here and you're down here. You know, I'd like for you to cooperate and do this because everybody's going to benefit from it versus I'm dictating exactly what you need to do. And they'll develop respect for that. And they also develop respect for the fact that you're a professional and you do a great job and you have really great, amazing standards. And then they want to try to achieve that level. I have a dental assistant that's just incredible, and she's just always learning and growing, and, you know, the films are beautiful. And I know a lot of it is because I've set this standard of excellence. And they want to get to that level too.
Another question they ask, and I noticed that older guys like me who are grandpas, the millennials are a very different animal than the grandpas out there, and a lot of their questions are, where's the line draw between friend and employee? Because I want to be your friend, I want to go out with you, I want to go drinking, and I want to go to the concert, but if you do this, I'll fire your ass. So where do you draw the line between, because I'm paying you money, so I know we're friends, but at the end of the day, you work for me, and I will fire you if you come in late one more time. So how do you draw the line between friend and can you still fire a friend? I'll ask that question.
I think sometimes you have to. Sometimes they're the biggest perpetrators and break the rules more than anything. I did find over years, it depends on your employees. My ones that have been with me for 20, 30 years, I do consider them a friend. We do some things together, but we do a lot away. And as the family got older, I think it kind of just pulled me away in that direction. But I also found there was a time when I remember my husband saying, Lisa, you're their boss. You're getting too emotionally tied up in this. And that's where I think there is a line you have to draw. And maybe it's the female in me, I don't want to be sexist either, but I did let myself I took too many things personally when things had happened. So I had to learn kind of the hard way, to be honest. I don't know where the line is, but I always tread real lightly at that in between. We do things together, but they're not included in everything. They saw my kids grow up, they come to the graduation parties, I go to their graduation parties, but we go out for a drink together as a group, but I usually don't do just one individual too often, unless it's a celebration, their anniversary or something like that. But it's a tough one. I don't know that I know the answer. Hopefully Stephanie might know it. I don't know.
I don't know. I would probably suggest that I was a bit too friendly over the years, especially with the really long-term employees. But again, there was a mutual respect, and I think that they were always great about, allowing me to have my space, especially when we were changing things, like we brought on an associate dentist, and just the different decision-making places, and the staff stepped back and allowed that leadership to happen. But it is kind of a slippery slope. You do get attached to these people, you do participate in their lives. One of my employees' father just died, and you treat these people over the years, you get attached. Now, did
you kill her father, or was that? Do you have anything to do with it? I mean, you're Italian. I mean, I know you're the mafia.
How about on the other side?
Yeah, how about the other side? You've been doing this longer than all of us. You graduated in 70. Mm-hmm. We're in 87, so you're our mentor. So what advice would you give these kids?
Well, I think site selection is important, and I think
site
selection for your office, finding a
demographics,
finding a place that you really want to live and enjoy. Time will take care of it. It seems like I've had practices in the city, in suburbs, and in rural areas, and it's a different. You shift gears each day. That used to take place.
How many practices did you have?
Well, I've had 7, and I currently have 2.
And how many years you practiced, from 70 to 2016?
46.
So in 46 years, you've had 7 offices.
Mm-hmm.
Now, George has had 8 wives. Is that right? Was that 9? Okay. And so 7. So wow. And talk about demographics, because I thought one of the most genius things you did, and I want to know if you thought this was true. You stayed in Kansas City that had a dental school. Stephanie thought there were too many dentists in Kansas City, so she drove an hour into Atchison. And do you think demographics mattered for your success, to your success? Talk about that.
Well, the part of I was in Kansas City, but I was in still what I call small town Kansas City. It's Kansas City, Kansas. So there wasn't a dentist on every corner. But I will say that I wanted to stay in Kansas City. I looked and looked and looked, and I was this close to going back to Wichita because I couldn't find what I wanted and felt that I could make it the way I wanted to make it. I happened into this practice because I was teaching at the dental school, and they kind of set me up with somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. And it was a perfect transition. It worked well. The older dentist was my patient for many, many years. Him and his family were my kids' adopted grandparents. I mean, the Kansas City grandparents. We'd go see them when they were in Colorado. You know, it just worked out. It had but it was a very small town, kind of like Stephanie, because I wasn't in the heart, Johnson County of Kansas City, or the heart of Kansas City. It's a very small town atmosphere where I was.
Now, you drove an hour away. Do you think that helped you? Because you were wildly successful. Do you think driving an hour away from Kansas City into small town Atchison was a big part of your success?
Oh, for sure. Oh, I moved there, though.
Yeah.
You know, I moved to the town.
Right.
Yes, for sure. You have much lower overhead.
So
and,
2/3 of all the dental graduates go to the 114 metros where half of America lives, and then 1/3 goes to the other 19,000 towns where the other half of America lives. And you got states like Iowa that if you go to a city with no dentists, Delta Dental of Iowa will give you a check for $100,000. The state of Iowa will give you a check for $100,000. And in the northern Midwest, 11% of all the towns don't have a dentist. But they're looking at you and saying, "What the shit did you do for fun in Atchison, Kansas? You just drink beer and watch HBO?" Or
actually had a farm for a while, rode horses, raised my kids out in the country. It was great. Participated in lots of the town. I mean, I became a member of the board of directors at the college in the town, and
how big was
got
the
to
town?
12,000 people.
12,000 people.
So pretty tiny, but you know, it's within driving distance of Kansas City, so we could come down and participate, and you know, go to the movies and go to nice restaurants and things like that. But you know, it's definitely a different approach.
So talk about how you had 7 offices in 50 years, 46 years. Mm-hmm. So 7 offices in 46 years. Did demographics matter?
Well, absolutely. I first went into practice in Atchison, and I decided that I wanted to move to a smaller town, and I did a lot of demographic research my junior year in dental school, and not necessarily high school, but did move to a town where there was a good opportunity. At that point, the town 12,000 people, highly industrialized for a small town, and there's only 3 dentists in the town. And so it was a good opportunity. There happened to be an office that was available, which ended up not doing that one. But nevertheless, about 12 years later, fast forward, my wife just couldn't adapt to the small town. So I decided, and this was at the height of the oversupply of dentists, and it was tough to get started. This had been in the early 80s. And so I decided to open an office in a major mall in Kansas City.
Why didn't you just get a new wife?
Well, actually, that did happen too.
So you got a new office and a new wife.
Yeah, that's right. You can't let the dust settle, you know.
Yeah. So a lot of these kids, one of the problems is they'll like go to UMKC, so they're spoiled on, you know, the Chiefs and the Plaza and the Kings and the Royals. I mean they won a World Series when we were all in school. 30 years. I cringe when they win their World Series. They go, they haven't won one for 30 years. I'm like, shit, that seemed like an hour ago. I was there an hour ago, and it was 30 years. But they all want to stay in downtown Kansas City. They want to stay on the plaza. Is that a good idea?
A very dear friend of mine, who is also a dentist, is now a practice broker. He had a problem with his shoulder and couldn't practice any longer. And he is telling me constantly, I have a practice in a small town of 1,200 people. And he said, and also a town, I'm here in the St. Joe, which is a town of 87,000, I think. But he says he considers those both small towns. And he said that I can't even get a dentist to come and look at a small town. There seems to be 2 issues. One is they get used to the city and they want to stay in the city. The second issue is they are married to another professional. And that second professional needs to be able to find a position in that small town as well. And so sometimes that's hard to do, to find positions for both of them. So small towns is...
So that's just one more reason you should not get married. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. We're almost out of time. We haven't even got to Tom. Tom, a lot of them are sitting in dental school and they're thinking there's 9 specialties. There were 4 in our class that became orthodontists. A lot of kids are sitting there thinking, I wonder if I should just go out and get a job or should I go to ortho school? If someone told you in 2016, should I go to ortho school, what would you say to that?
Of course, in 2016, I'd want them not to go into ortho school. I'd want them to be a general dentist and continue to refer to me. However, ortho school, it was very good. It was very helpful for me. I was not very well prepared for business. I was a geek and still am. As opposed to Howard, when I came out of school, I was very prepared. I went into residency, and when everybody else was kind of looking for jobs, I knew I was going to go in with my orthodontist that had treated me. And I came out of school with no contract and everything, and just knew I was going to go in, and he got cold feet. So I'm sitting there with student loans, and we had $40,000 worth of student loans we had to deal with then. I mean, that was an ungodly amount. That was more than minimum wage. So I was kind of nervous, and I ended up lucking out. I didn't do this by planning. There was a fellow that was in town, father-son practice, that the son, they kind of had a falling out. They didn't have a really good buy-sell agreement for them. Dad put son through dental school, thought son owed him. Son worked like crazy building up their practice, thought dad owed him. So they kind of just had a falling out. Son moved away, and dad needed somebody. And I needed something, so I kind of got into that.
And where was that at?
It was actually in Kansas City. Of course, I did this thing. I came back to where I went to dental school because I liked it, and I liked the girl who was here. So I married a girl from here, so stuck here. But
in St. Joe?
Huh? Well, actually in Kansas City there, yeah. Okay. But also, the practice had some satellites. In orthodontics, a lot of times, especially in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of satellite offices. Not as much anymore. But we went to some small towns. And similar to what we're sharing here, the small towns have a lot of dental need and a lot of business. And you can drive, peacefully for like 45 minutes an hour, go to a really underserved place and do real well. And actually be treated with respect, which I never deserved, but it was kind of nice to get it even unearned then. But yeah, I'd go, orthodontics is a good specialty to go into. Any of those other specialties I think were good. The thing that we were hearing from all our instructors in residency was like, okay, it's horrible because all the general dentists are doing ortho because they're just taking money away from us then. And that's baloney. My experience has been that the general dentists that do ortho are looking for ortho. They see, instead of seeing like, okay, Mrs. Gotrock, you got an MOD that you need to have. You say, well, you know what, Mrs. Gotrock, you got a crossbite, and all 3 of your kids look like they got crossbites, and yeah, we can I can probably take care of this stuff, but I know a guy down the street that's not, he's not too bad that you might go to. And that's where sometimes we may get, and you can work synergistically. I know surgeons a lot of times, they realize that general dentists are doing a lot of the implants, so they make a living, they do well, and they like to work with general dentists. It's we're all cattle farmers and we're all sheep farmers, and we can get along together, as they say in Oklahoma.
About the employer-employee relationship. I had a mentor, Dave Polsky, who owned a Ford Lincoln Mercury car dealership. And one time he told me, he said, Doc, he goes, don't eat and shit in the same bowl. And I didn't really take it to heart, and I had kind of a little relationship with one of my assistants and ended up with my first divorce. And so keep those relationships at an arm's length, definitely, and professional. And don't forget what Dave Polsky said.
Damn, that's some honesty on a podcast. That's beautiful because a lot of people don't talk about it, but there's so many dentists who you spend a lot of time with these other people, and a lot of times they start dating an employee, and that usually is going to cost about 2 to 3 times your student loan debt. And so if you're bitching about $350,000 of student loans, just sleep with your assistant. And I want to say one thing about the specialty before I leave is that 30 years out, I went there's some people think in fear and scarcity, and some people think in hope, growth, and abundance. And I remember when I got out of school, I sat up my corner, and I couldn't wait to run across the street to meet all my homie dentists who were going to practice there forever. And just like dental school, I thought we'd all go to a Mexican restaurant and drink margaritas, and half of them were so pissed that I opened up on the cross street, and we don't need a dentist, and that was a dumb idea, and they just wanted nothing to do with me. And the other half were like, oh, come on, are you a Cardinals fan? They wouldn't, and we drank beer and cheeseburgers. 30 years later, all those dentists who opened the door and said, come on in, let's have a beer, and thought in hope, growth, and abundancy, our guys across the street from me just crushed it. All the ones who thought in fear and scarcity had miserable careers. Same thing with specialists. I mean, endodontists know that you're going to do all the single canals, and you might try some molars, but you're not going to do seconds or retreats. Or if your oral surgeon or your orthodontist gets bent out of shape, if your orthodontist gets bent out of shape, then you're doing Invisalign. You're dealing with the guy in fear and scarcity. I know that the orthodontist, I can give you the names of 5 orthodontists in cities of a million that the rumor's out that, yeah, if you want to do Invisalign, do it. And if you get in a bun, go check this guy, and he'll help you through everything. Well, now guess who's referring them all the X stuff? I mean, if I go to you and as an orthodontist and you bail me out where I overreached with Invisalign and I didn't know what I was doing, and you bail me out, who am I going to send all my ortho to? Me. Yeah. Same thing with the oral surgeons and periodontists. There's oral surgeons. Yeah, there's oral surgeons in Phoenix that bail out the biggest implant abortions in town, and the general dentist feels so guilty he refers all of his implants. And so just find someone. You only live once. Find someone who thinks in hope, growth, and abundancy. And if someone's making you, if an endodontist is making you feel bad because you did a root canal, or an orthodontist making you feel bad that you did endo, whatever, they're in the wrong mindset. And God bless the pediatric dentists, because those guys have to be insane to have chosen that. But thank you so much for talking to my homies today.